Hello and welcome to another episode of Death by Bunjie. I hope this is coming through. I know you guys are already tired of hearing me ask every time when I start these live streams, is this coming through? Is the audio working? That sort of thing. We've already got a couple of people logged on here. I've got some chat going here with a few people, and we've already got an answer to the question that is the subject of this live stream. If you can't hear me good, if this doesn't sound good, I've got the air conditioner on. I can shut that off. If you can hear that air conditioner, let me know. I'll shut that off. But if you can hear me good, I'm going to leave it on just so I don't start sweating and all that good stuff. So good to hear from you folks. We've got a lot of people here. Moose Junction Hunter, hello. How are you doing? Dean, good to hear you again. Good to see you again. And the Cauldron's Fur Fish and Feathers Lodge made it, just got off work. Well, good for you. Good for you. What a thing to do when you just get off work. Come in here and log into this thing. Hello from New Zealand. Good morning from New Zealand. Well, good morning to New Zealand. That's fantastic. We've got people from North Carolina all the way over in New Zealand as well. My big head is definitely coming through. I do have a huge head. It's to house my huge brain. That's what I keep telling myself anyway. No, that's funny though. So far, so good. We're all coming in here. Everybody appears to be able to hear me, see me, that sort of thing. We've even got people from Wisconsin. So hello to all of you out there who decided to join in to this live stream from Death by Bunjie. The subject of this live stream is going to be a chat about whether you need whether you need a truck to be a hunter. Do you need a truck? And they're sort of going to address some of the questions that I get from newer hunters and some people who say, look, I don't have a truck. If I shoot something, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to get it around here? How am I going to get this deer in and out of the woods? How am I going to get it home? How am I going to get it to a processor? What am I going to do with this deer? And I thought, well, this is a great way to sort of combine a little bit of backstory about Death by Bunjie, about me, some old cars that I had. I had a really fun morning leafing through some old pictures that I had on a hard drive here, going back and looking at some old cars and vehicles that I used to have, and I thought, I'll share those with you. You guys will get a kick out of that stuff, maybe not. Let's see if that is a lot of fun. Now, you guys saw the intro, the thumbnail on this thing is that 1985 Toyota pickup. Now, that is a classic vehicle, and someone had posted, boy, it'd be great if you still had that vehicle, and I'm pretty sure that vehicle would be a pile of dust and parts by this point if I still had that vehicle. That thing was a nice vehicle in its time, for its time, and sort of going back to why I was interested in the Toyota in the first place was the movie Back to the Future. If you remember, around 1985, Back to the Future came out. Michael J. Fox, his dream vehicle, after getting the future all straightened out, after getting his life all straightened out, he goes back in time, fixes the future, comes back to the present day, and what's his perfect vehicle? What's his perfect truck? It was a Toyota Extra Cab, that black one with the roll cage, jacked up, the whole bit. I loved those trucks as soon as I saw that movie. And I ended up, by 1986, 87, somewhere in there, I bought this truck. Now it was a pretty rough vehicle, I got to tell you. Someone had been driving it around, had a 4 or 6 inch lift kit in it, had oversized tires. These are not the tires that were on it when I got it. Those were shot. This thing had been repossessed. It had been beat right into the ground, and it was abused badly. And these aren't the kinds of vehicles that lasted a long time anyway. Oddly enough, when I had this vehicle, I wasn't actually hunting an awful lot. I was getting ready to go off to college, and I was sort of really into playing guitar and all that stuff. I mean, I was hunting, but back then, a lot of you guys can identify with this. Back in the 80s, I shot my first deer in 1986, and back in the 80s, it was rifle hunting. There was no archery hunting for me anyway, for my family, that's for sure. None of my friends. I had one friend that dabbled in it, and for the most part, everybody else archery hunting was kind of an outside thing. It wasn't something that was popular at the time. Certainly there was no crossbow hunting. Crossbows were the only crossbow I ever saw. A kid in my 7th grade history class made one as a project in a medieval studies type thing and brought it in and shared it with the class. Today you'd probably go to jail for bringing something like that to school, but he did nonetheless. And that was the only crossbow I'd ever even seen or heard of or touched or shot or anything. But that truck was something I could carry, guitars in the back of, amplifiers in the back of, and all that stuff. And it was pretty convenient for that. Now, I only hunted with a rifle back then and only hunted right there on that property where those pictures were taken. there wasn't any reason for me to go and take that pickup truck anywhere else. We processed our own deer and never had a reason to even haul a deer in that pickup truck. But when I went off to college, that was not a convenient vehicle. I went off to college by 1989. I went off to college and eventually off to law school, and I needed a car to get back and forth to college and all that. And are you ready for this? This is where these pictures are going to get kind of funny, and we'll go through. I want to hear from you guys about vehicles that you had, cars you had, trucks you had, that sort of thing. And if you can identify with any of the fun vehicles that I'm going to be talking about in this webcast here, in this live stream, it'll be kind of interesting to see what you have to say. I'm going to go back and look at that after I go through the rest of these vehicles real quick. But this is the car that I took to college. It was a 1983 Chevy Monte Carlo. Now this car, can you be a hunter in a car like this? I'm not sure. It was underpowered. It had a V6 and it weighed about 4 or 6 tons. I don't know. It was terrible. It was 2 doors, and the doors weighed about 125 pounds apiece. And after the car was a year old, those hinges bent on those doors, so you kind of had to, in order to shut the doors, you had to shut them and sort of lift up on them at the same time because the hinges were bent and they were sloped down, so it was hard to shut the doors. It's awful. What an awful vehicle. But it's a nice picture, and that car did, when it ran, when it was on the highway, something like that with cruise control, that was a fun car to drive. Later on in college, I ended up with an Oldsmobile Calais. I just love this picture. I was so proud of it. I went down, I washed it good, and I took a picture of it on the Wyalusing rocks with the view in the background. And that was, I got into photography. I love photography. You've noticed that on the Death by Bunjie Facebook page. You've noticed it, I'm sure, in the videos and all that fun stuff. But it is not this was early photography for me. You can see that kind of stuff. So it was like, what a neat old thing here. Just a neat old picture. I really got a kick out of that. So that was the fun one. Now, later on, when I got out of law school and all that good stuff, one of my first cars, and this is the blurriest picture I could find of it, I guess. I don't know. So much for my photography skills, right? But this is a picture of my Nissan Altima, which back when I had this car, this is the car I was driving when my wife and I got together, got engaged and all that, and she still married me. So go figure. I don't know. Apparently you don't need a fancy car to attract women. The front bumper's all scratched up. Like this thing was just a junky looking car looking back. I didn't realize it was that bad. But later on, after I got married, I did manage to buy my first brand new car, and that was this beauty. That is my first vehicle that I ever bought. I was all out of law school, had already gotten married, we already had a kid, and this was a vehicle that we bought. We could put the kid in the back with a car seat and all that stuff. Genevieve rode back there when she was a little baby, and there's my Toyota Tundra, 2001 Toyota Tundra. I loved this truck. I would probably still be driving this, 17 years old and all this stuff, because it would by now be 17 years old. But that thing, by 2007, it was all paid off. It ran like a top. It was just beautiful. It was quiet. The stereo was great. It was comfortable. It did everything you wanted it to do. And then this happened. Look at this. So it's on these are just more pictures of that Toyota Tundra. What a sleek truck. It really was a beautiful truck. The day I bought it, I went to 3 different courthouses. I had to travel, and I took pictures of it in front of 3 different courthouses. But this is what happened to that in 2007. Look at this. I had it parked on the street, and some Nimrod came through and hit the thing. And it was parked there. It was not a busy street. There was nobody else on the street. He didn't have to swerve to miss anybody. He just wasn't paying attention and hit it. He wasn't drunk or anything. And it totaled that vehicle. He hit that back bumper just right to tweak the frame enough that they ended up totaling it. So if you can believe that. I mean, you go from having the best vehicle you've ever had to going to a totaled vehicle. So I cashed in the insurance on that, and I went and bought a 2000 Chevrolet Trailblazer, which is the absolute worst vehicle I've ever touched. I can't imagine the world having a worse vehicle than this. This thing, I had 17,000 miles on this, and the gas gauge quit working. And I was up at the mall one day, an hour from home, and the key wouldn't turn. Can you believe that? It was just a big old pain. So now, what do? you know, I'm getting into hunting by that point in time. I'm starting, and that's the reason that Blazer was down there in the woods stuck, that picture of that. Now, in all fairness, that vehicle was not set for driving in the woods. And shortly after that picture was taken, I went and bought the Polaris Ranger, which is the 2011 Polaris Ranger. Now, that's the kind of vehicle you drive in and out of the woods. The Ranger's really, or the Trailblazer was really not meant for that. So that's not the Blazer's fault. But it did convince me to go out and buy that Ranger. But the Blazer, at that time, I was starting to get into hunting. So, you know, after I got rid of the Blazer, eventually I traded that in. And I was full, you know, I was full into hunting by 2009 or so, back into hunting full time, you know, every season. And by 2010, I was getting into crossbow hunting, which extended my seasons. You know, in Pennsylvania, if you're a rifle hunter, and up until 2009, I'd only been a rifle hunter. And if you're a rifle hunter, your hunting season is really the Monday after Thanksgiving for 2 weeks. That's Pennsylvania's rifle hunting season, 2 weeks. So if you're a hunter, and you basically only hunted a couple of those days, or 3 or 4 of those days maybe, you know, around here, most people did. So when I switched over to crossbows in 2010, my hunting season expanded. All of a sudden, I'm looking at the late season. I'm looking at the early season. I'm going places and traveling to go hunting. It's just a whole new world, crossbow hunting was. It's what made it so exciting. Then eventually I made this channel because it thrills me so much. I enjoyed it so much. But when you're getting into that, now you got to haul gear around. What kind of vehicle do you buy? And here is what I am driving today. And boom, there it is. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the 2013 Toyota RAV4. All-wheel drive. What more do you want in a vehicle? Great gas mileage. The whole family fits in here. I can put the seats down and put 2 coolers in there along with a crossbow. All the gear I need to go back and forth to Maryland. Everything you want to put in there is there. It's all-wheel drive, so it goes anywhere in the winter. It's raised up just enough so I can go down to the river and back and all that good stuff. But it's got all the speed you need on the highway, and, you know, what more can you ask for? The world's greatest stereo, riding around in comfort, the whole bit. And the cool thing about that is, one of the things that I really like about the RAV4 is, and this gets into our overall topic of conversation here, is you don't need to have a pickup truck necessarily to be a hunter. Because I could put a hitch haul on the back of this. I put a little 2-inch receiver on the back, so I could put a hitch haul on the back. And the hitch haul is this dude right here. Let me have a picture of that for you. That little picture right there. That's the hitch haul, and you can put 2 coolers in there that I use, and it works perfect. You know, so on this stuff, you know, I love pickup trucks. Don't get me wrong. And my favorite TV hunting shows, when you looked at like Benny Spies has the toaster that he drove around in, that camper, and you look at Ted Nugent and the pickup trucks that he's got, and he's got the famous Bronco, that Bronco that's, you know, the zebra-looking Bronco. That's pretty cool. I love that stuff. And if you look at some of the YouTube channels that I watch, they got their trucks all painted up. They got these nice, fancy, expensive trucks with all the decals on and everything else. And I think that stuff's fantastic. I love the fact that they are committed to it that way. But you don't have to be that way to really go out and enjoy the outdoors. I think that you shoot a deer in the woods, get the deer to your car or whatever, you can quarter it up there. The first deer that I shot in Maryland, I actually quartered up next to the car and put it in coolers and brought it home. I left the carcass there, which is really, looking back, a good idea. You kind of want to leave the carcass where it is. It'd be better if you could dispose of it there in a way that animals aren't going to drag it all over the place, and you're not going to expose the spinal column and all that jazz. But for the most part, leaving it there and not bringing it back to Pennsylvania was the appropriate thing. And since then, that's what the law has been. So that, no problem with that. But you're just going to quarter it up, skin the deer right there, quarter it up. You can work on it. There are gutless skinning methods that you can look into if you're into that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of tools that you can use. And once it's quartered up, you throw it in the car and the coolers bring it home, you can process it. If you keep enough ice on it, it'll last for a few days in the coolers just fine until you get a chance to process it in your kitchen at home. Really, it's that simple. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of work to get a deer out of the woods with a Ranger, bring it up to the garage and clean it up there. It's a lot of work no matter what you do, right? Now, the other thing you can do is get that hitch haul or wrap the deer up in tarps after it's gutted, put it in the trunk, preferably on that hitch haul, and take that to a deer processor. You can do that. And if you're going to process it locally and you have someone lined up. But the other thing I want to tell you, in this RAV4 that I've showed you here, that RAV4, this is going to gross a lot of people out. But when I put the back seats down in that thing, I have carried more than one dead deer in this RAV4 with the seats down, rolled up in a tarp after I cleaned it out, after I gutted it. And the important thing to do there is you want to take a couple bags of ice, leave the ice right in the bags, stuff that in a carcass to keep that meat as cool as possible if you're transporting it in a tarp. You don't want to trap the heat in there. You want to force that deer to cool down a little bit. But I've done that, you know, and it really doesn't make the car that dirty. It stinks a little bit, but you run maybe an Ozonics machine in there a little bit, you know, the little cigarette lighter jazz. That I didn't have one back then. Drive around with the windows down, whatever you got to do. But basically air the car out and you're back to square one. With the tarp, take the tarp out, you can hose the tarp down later and all that good stuff. So you can get this done. You really can. The pickup truck you don't need a pickup truck. You certainly do not need that. So I hope you've gotten something out of that. Those folks that were curious about this stuff, that were, you know, that asked me these questions over a period of time, folks that might be worrying about that or wondering about it. I don't want people to be discouraged from going out there and hunting when it is a doable thing. You know, when I got into crossbow hunting, I had to learn an awful lot, and that was only 9 years ago. And I had to learn an awful lot of things that are just foreign concepts to me. The idea of shooting a deer less than 20 yards away from me, that's insane. That never happened with a rifle. And now it happens all the time. So that's pretty cool. So I hope that folks got some stuff out of that. Now let's go look at the comments here. We got people from Tennessee chiming in here. Brent Young, good to hear from you again. Danielle Grandpa, good to hear from you from Harrisburg. And of course, Brett from Wisconsin. We've got people from Elkton, Maryland. I think Uncle Ted calls this an electronic campfire. You know, Dean, that's pretty funny. An electronic campfire. I had commented that this is our virtual deer camp. One of the things that when I was growing up a rifle hunter, you could go out and, as a rifle hunter, I'd spend time with my cousins, maybe my grandfather, before the hunting season. They'd all sort of get there, or we go get our rifles sighted in the weekend before that. And that was our deer camp. And a lot of people go away to a deer camp. I don't have that anymore. Crossbow hunting for me is a completely solo enterprise. And an electronic campfire, that's a good way to talk about these live streams that we do. To me, they're kind of like the virtual deer camp. It's like having a deer camp, but it's online. So I have all these people from all over the place that I can sort of have this community with and bounce these ideas off of them. And I really think this is awesome. Now, we're going Russell Scare. The audio's no good. I'm really sorry about that. Hopefully the audio, you know, there's so much going into this audio. Sometimes it's on my end, sometimes your end. It's hard for me to fix all of that. The microphone is not back. I'm still on this little microphone here, this lapel microphone, but I will have that Rode Video Mic Pro back soon. You mark my words. So I've got some plans on that. Hello to North Fort Myers, Florida. Robert Moore. Fort Myers, Florida. I have vacationed there before. I love that place. You are in a nice neck of the woods, if you ask me. I really like that. That's on the Gulf side of Florida. And Kip Wright, yes, everyone needs a truck. Couldn't imagine life without a truck. Kip Wright, you and me both. You know, for years I had that Tundra, and I always considered myself a pickup truck guy. But now with the RAV, especially now that the RAV's 4 is paid off, it's kind of hard to say no to a paid off vehicle where you don't have to worry about payments and all that good stuff. But yeah, I hear you. The truck is, there's always going to be a need for a truck, you know. Hello to Pittsburgh, Greg. It's good to hear from you. Got a buddy that puts them in the trunk of his Grand Am. We're talking about deer there, right, Dean? And that's pretty cool. Michael Lee has a Subaru. I'm betting you got the same thing, access that I have in my RAV. You can stuff all kinds of deer in the back of that thing. Pile them right in there. Russell Scara. Okay, I get that. That's pretty good. Here we have Brett Collins. We have a rack we hook up to our SUV. Now, he might be talking about the hitch haul type thing or on the top. There's different options. You know, you don't. Back in the 50s, my grandfather didn't carry the deer around. He didn't haul the deer around in the back of his pickup truck. In the 1950s, when my grandfather shot a really nice 8-point that later on became like Bradford County's, one of the biggest bucks in Bradford County. It's still listed in our local register of the biggest bucks in Bradford County history. And he drove that around on the hood of his pickup. He didn't put it in the bed of his pickup because nobody could see it if it was in the bed. He strapped it to the hood. He had bungee cords under the fenders going up over the neck and bungee cords under the fenders going up over the legs, and he drove that thing around town, showed it off his deer. Nothing wrong with that. Times have changed. Hello to Northern Virginia. Do I ever hunt with my kid? You have 4 and you're trying to get him into hunting, and you are an F-150 driver. Now there's a pickup truck. Peter Upton, I have gone hunting with Genevieve. There's a couple of hunts where we went to like a boar preserve, that kind of thing. You know, she'll do something where it's limited and short like that. I do try to force her to go hunting with me once a year. If I can get her out there in the woods once a year, I think that's an accomplishment. She's always helped me with the management, the habitat work, like the food plots and stuff like that. And some of that she enjoys with limitations, but when you start forcing a kid to do stuff, it no longer becomes fun. So you have to do it on their terms, completely on their terms. So I let her just go and run the camera and all that. She doesn't have any interest at this point in life of hunting. Maybe that'll change in 10 years. If it does, that'd be fantastic. If it doesn't, I don't think it's the end of the world, because I think she's going to be at least accepting of hunting either way. And maybe that's the best I can do. You know, not everybody's cut out for it. Dean, it does make hauling a deer a lot easier. Yeah, hauling anything in a pickup truck is just so much easier. It really is. But you can get it done. That was my point, I guess, is that you can get it done. And I don't want people to feel limited by their gear or by their budget, that sort of thing. You can get it done without that stuff. We have Huntwise JDR putting them in the back of his Journey. Nothing wrong with that. Russell Scare, I hope that audio is back. Ron has been putting deer in the back of his Impala. Now the Impala, that's the family size sedan right there. If you can haul a deer in that, you can do it in anything. The guy Marty was yeah, okay, we got Dean commenting on Back to the Future. Yes, Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers actually had a guest appearance in that movie. That was pretty funny. Danielle Grandpa, yeah, there's nothing better than hosing out the back of that truck. That's the nice thing about that. If you get all done with it and you're running a vacuum cleaner, carpet cleaner with chemicals and everything else to clean out the back of my RAV4, whereas with your pickup truck, obviously hit that with a hose, you're good. Or don't clean it out. You know, the pickup truck kind of runs itself, takes care of itself. Jeep Wrangler, Dean, that's nothing wrong with that too. We had an old Jeep back in the day. We had a Jeep, an old Willys Jeep, and that was what I hauled my first few deer out of. I should have included pictures of that. That was the ultimate deer hauling machine, the Willys Jeep. That thing was the early Ranger. It was before they didn't make Rangers back then. So back in the 80s, we had that old 62 or 65 Willys Jeep. Michael Lee's first car was a 1969 Pontiac Catalina. Now there's one I wish he still had, I bet. Yep, that's a nice car in Benton. That would be primo. That would really stand out in a crowd in this day and age. That was a 2-body trunk, John Grimes is saying. Yep. Fish Hunt Trapper Outdoors up in Buffalo brought a deer home on the top of his Gremlin one year. That's another thing you can do in those station wagons and stuff. If you can get them up there, you can strap a deer down to the top, to the outside of the car, and haul it as far as you got to go. You know, people are going to see that on the highway. The deer does get road debris and stuff on it like that. But once you hang it up, hose it good, hose it right down, you'll be in good shape. Leave the hide on. The hide protects that deer, protects the meat just fine. We have a 62 Studebaker was the first car. That's pretty cool. We have a Geo Metro. Yep, that's a good hunting vehicle right there. They were a fun little car. I bet they are, actually, because they're a small little thing. Hunt Fish Nuts, the official truck of Bassmaster. Is that the F-150? What's the official truck of Bassmaster? I'm very curious about that. And then we got somebody saying, "Oh no, not a Trailblazer." Yeah, the Trailblazer was it's like the saddest of Chevy is at its saddest. It was pretty bad. The Blazers were a little better than the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers were like the economy model, and they're a little bit, Moose Junction Hunter, we shall see you next time. Hopefully you'll be hauling a nice buck in your sedan tomorrow. I wish you the absolute best. I certainly hope that is what you accomplish. That's great. Russell Scare, congrats. I think he's saying Pennsylvania is number 3 on auto and deer collisions, according to the internet. We're number 3? I thought we were number 1. I thought it was us in West Virginia. We had 114,000 deer and automobile collisions a year ago, in 1 year. That's nuts. Subaru Outbacks, we've got some more people with the Subarus, and the all-wheel drive. I do love all-wheel drive, I'll tell you. I mean, I'm a four-wheel drive guy with a pickup truck and all that stuff, but when you have yourself a nice little vehicle with all-wheel drive, there's nothing wrong with that. We had a big block Bronco. Yeah, my buddy of mine had a Bronco back in the day. They got 400 yards to the gallon. I'll read that comment because I had a 79 big block Bronco, but it got 400 yards to the gallon. Amen to that. The RAV4, that's the other thing. Get this. It's rated, I think, at like 24 to 28, like 24 city and 28 highway. And if you look at my odometer right now, the life of the vehicle, the range that I have gotten on this for gas mileage is 27.2. And I don't drive on the highway. Well, I drive on the highway every day, but I do an awful lot. I live in a rural area, so there's a lot of stop and go. And I get about 27 miles a gallon with that thing. And that's amazing with all-wheel drive. I mean, I can get where I got to go in the winter, so you can't beat it. So we have Dean saying his big fancy truck is a stock Chevy 2500 HD with a Death by Bunjie sticker in the back window. That ups the value of any motor vehicle out there. There's no doubt about that. I'm glad to hear that. Have I done any videos on quartering deer up or deboning or processing them? I did the gutting video, Brett Collins. I am not an expert on this stuff. They turn it into these long rambling videos. Dr. Grant Woods on Growing Deer TV really has the best quartering up or processing deer video out there. You should check that out if you haven't seen it. I watch it every year. I watch it a couple of times a year, really, just to refresh myself before I get into business doing that stuff. But that's really one of the best ones out there, I think. We've got lots of people putting deer in cars on tarps, and I think that's fantastic. Yeah, we got a lot of people saying that they have done that. Here, I was a little bit embarrassed to say that I had hauled a deer in a tarp in the back of the car, but I'm glad to hear other people are doing that. Hello to Baltimore, Maryland, and Rochester, New York. We got somebody from Omaha, Nebraska. That's fantastic. Wayne Patton, very good point. A truck isn't needed, but a vehicle that can carry all of your gear is. That's for sure. And that's one thing about this RAV with the seats down. My nephew and I both went to Maryland in that vehicle back in 2014 or so. Go back and watch the videos to see when it was. But we both sat up front, seats down, 2 coolers, and all of his gear and all of my gear, 2 crossbows. All this gear. We had the 2 coolers set up on the hitch haul in the back. We took it all down there. So it can get done. And that vehicle hauled all of that stuff. Hello to New Jersey, Wayne Morris. Good to hear from you. We've got folks with more Jeep Wranglers. That's nothing wrong with that. And payments on a new truck can be more than your mortgage. That's a good point. The older I get, the more I look at reducing bills and stuff, so I got money left over so I can buy that new camera if I want to, or maybe down the road buy another crossbow or go on these hunting trips and stuff like that. I like to save my money and not spend it if I don't have to. And here's what we're going to be, you go out and buy a truck and all of a sudden you're back up to $500, $600 a month on that. And it's not for me. Not for me. How's it going? How have you been out much? And the temperatures are dropping. Just to give you an update on the hunting here in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has not been good to me so far. Most recently, I had the wind perfect. I finally discovered, I'll tell you two things. The wind was perfect, blowing from the bedding areas where I was expecting the deer to come from. And I'm sitting on the edge of the food plot, tucked in there. I'm all set up an hour before their anticipated arrival. Just ready to do this. And this year I'm hunting on the ground, so I'm tucked into a little autumn olive bush. And as I'm sitting there, I'm looking and I got my camera, my field cam, that little GoPro that's off to the side. I didn't like where it was. It was out in front of me a little bit. I figured the deer are probably going to see that. So I'm like, before they get here, let me move that camera. So I got up, I moved the camera back out of the way, and I think I did it, moved to the right spot. And as I go to sit back down, I look over, there are 6 deer looking at me, watching me move the camera. And if I had just sat still, I probably would have shot a deer in 1 minute. 1 minute later. That close. I was so frustrated. So I packed up all my gear and I went down the woods. I went down and just sat along the creek. And I saw a deer just at a distance. No shots or anything. So I've not been successful yet in Pennsylvania. But there's a couple nights this week that look really good. So hopefully I can eke in there, creep in there for and the deer have come back to that food plot. They aren't totally turned off by it. They've been in there since then. So on a day when I didn't hunt. So we're going to figure this out. Did I get a buck in Maryland? Outdoor lifestyle. You're going to have to wait until this week's video. Don't hold your breath. But this week's video will answer that question. But don't hold your breath. But I got some great pictures with bucks in the pictures. How's that? That's pretty cool. They used to strap them to the fenders on the 30s cars. Yeah, the 30s cars had the fenders built for carrying deer, I'm betting. That there's a whole different thing. Hello to all you folks in Illinois. How great is that? Have I ever used the tarsal glands when hunting as a lure? I do not do that. I know some people swear by that stuff, never throw anything away, use that part of the deer. I do not do that, but that wouldn't be a bad idea. If I shoot a doe, throw them in a Ziploc bag, take those out and spread them around when I go out and use a decoy to hunt. Because in a week or so, I'm going to start hunting with a decoy, and I'm going to hunt 3 solid weeks, the second half of the Pennsylvania crossbow season. I'm going to hunt with a decoy. I'm going to really buckle down and just use a decoy and see if I can really get some good footage that way. I'm pretty excited about that because I'm really only interested in bucks right now. I got 4 deer in the freezer, but another doe wouldn't hurt either. You can't have too much venison in the freezer, I don't think. Russell Scare, I agree. All you can do is expose your kids to it, and if it takes, great. If not, you tried. Boy, that's true. And I think they might come back to it. You know, when I went to college, when I went to law school, and then for a few years after that, I drifted away from hunting. And it took a while for me to get back into it. When I got back into it hot and heavy, and now I'm doing a channel about it, right? So you never know. But you do have to expose them early on. I think you just need to expose them. And in the most pleasant way, I'm going to do videos on this stuff down the road, but you want to do it in a fun and pleasant way. 1984's finest uses a tractor, throws the deer in a bucket. There's no substitute for that on your own property, getting a deer out of the woods in a bucket. Boy, I'll tell you, especially the bigger deer. If you shoot more mature does or bucks, you really need something to help you lift them up. Getting them in the back of the Ranger is a little tough. 2004 Durango, take them for a ride in style. Boy, you can't beat that. That's a good ride. We have deer carts and ramps. Roll your deer up in your truck and you're on your way. Fantastic. Tracy crossbow. That is the deer cart that's an upcoming purchase for me. So if I'm hunting someplace without a Ranger, I have the cart. Those are pretty cool little things. I need one that breaks down though, that I get in the back of the RAV4 without filling up the entire back end of that thing, because you gotta make sure you keep the amount of room that you need. Mr. Axelrod. This is my first season hunting with a crossbow. I'm a hunter out of the Volkswagen Golf. Well, nothing wrong with that. Have a large cooler in the back, skin and quarter, bring home to process. Yeah, that's really the whole thing. Take a tarp to lay the tarp out so you can put the deer on there and you're not standing in the leaves and in the dirt and in the mud, and that you've got that tarp where you can work a little bit. And then you can, if you have to throw the deer away, contractor garbage bags. If you don't want to leave the carcass there, just get a roll of contractor garbage bags, tuck them under your seat when you need one, pull one of them out, put the carcass in there, and you can throw that bag right in the back of your car, and then when you get to the dumpster, when you get someplace where you throw it away, leave it by the curb with the rest of your garbage, and away it goes. I've done that here with deer that I've processed here at this place. So that's how you get rid of the carcasses. I don't like leaving them there. If you have a hitch, you can use the wheelchair extension platform. Interesting idea. That would work if you have a hitch like that. Yep. Oh, my Toyota Tundra. That's the Bassmaster special truck, the Toyota Tundra. Well, that's fantastic. I did, honestly, love the Toyota Tundra. But I think if I bought a new one today, I'd probably buy a Tacoma, because they're the size that the Tundra used to be, if you've ever noticed that. I really like the Tacomas. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. We got a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Yep, there's nothing wrong with that. Believe it or not, my wife drives a Jeep Grand Cherokee. So those are a family vehicle as well. We got Silverado. We use a buck in Maryland this year, or on any cams. Outdoor lifestyle. I haven't had a legal buck. I mentioned this last week. I haven't had a legal buck on a camera since in 11 months. Can you believe that? It's one of the 6 deer that was staring at me, though, that I just talked about a few minutes ago. One of those 6 deer was a spike, so at least I got a buck. We're getting there. But I do have plans on looking for bucks this year. So I don't have them on cameras, but during the rut, the next few weeks, they're going to start moving around, and I'm going to be there when they're there. I'm going to be out there giving them plenty of opportunity with calls, and that's a good point for next week. Next week's live stream, the topic is calls, deer calls. I'm going to go through all of my deer calls, and I hope you will be here. You will join in, and you'll give me pointers on deer calls, because I really need the pointers. So please hop in there and do that. West Virginia's #1. You're probably talking, Russell, about the deer accidents. I don't doubt that. I had read that before. He just shot. We have B. Chappie. Just took a shot with his Axiom in Maryland. Well, good luck to you. That's fantastic. I hope you recover your deer. A 12 point. Wow. Or you just shot a 12 point. Did you recover that? That's fantastic. That's great news. We've got somebody getting 10 miles per gallon. Yep. That's how that is. And we have someone, Dean is telling us, check out Bearded Butcher on YouTube, a whole series on breaking down the deer. I shall check that out. I will mark that comment so I can come back to it, because anything I can learn on that process, I like to do. Yeah. You get funny looks with your Buick Park Avenue as a hunter, but it does put meat on the table. Whatever gets it done, that's the way it is. Jimmy Dickens likes the Dr. Woods deer processing video as well. Yep, Brett Collins has something similar to the hitch haul. Oh, a 99 Chevy Venture van. Now there's a vehicle. Yeah, that's a vehicle. And Barnett Whitetail Hunter 2. That is a heck of a crossbow right there. See if I can get through here. Where are we at here? People talking about their stuff. Yeah, there's a bunch of interesting comments on here. This is the most comments we've had in a long time here in a long time. This is like what, the 4th live stream I've done, but there are a lot of comments on here, and this is the first time I've had trouble sort of keeping up with them, getting caught up here. Hunt-wise JDR, all the kids want nowadays is video games. That's true. That's true, and you do have to force kids to get outside, and that's just one of those things. There you go. Dean's talking about how he got his oldest son out hunting. You just never know what's going to happen. They will pick up on that and see what happens, you know. The cart that folds up the size of a lawn chair, best tool you ever bought. Hunt Fish Nuts, if you can let me know like what kind of cart that is, I will check that out. Speaking of which, something I wanted to show you guys. I get questions all the time about what do you use? Do you use this? Do you use that? What do you use for this kind of thing? And I wanted to show you real quick. When I look at my, when I get those questions, what I have done is I have gone on our website, deathbybunjie.com. And if you go to that website, it'll give you a chance. You can scroll through it. You see my big old, you think my head's big on this live stream, look at it on this picture. But it's just a snapshot of our new intro and all that to dress up the webpage. And then I have put on here, how do you haul deer without a truck? This talks about that, talks about the live stream. But on here, you can go under store and you can buy some of the items that we got, the t-shirts and stuff, and you can buy koozies, all that stuff. This is the shameless plug. Please just, don't worry. But if you're interested in the music and stuff, you can check out that music. But that's not the only thing that I'm doing here. This is the reason I did this, is because you can go to My Gear, and on the My Gear page, it lists the specific items that I use. If you're curious about what I use on Death by Bunjie, what kind of blind I use, what kind of coolers that I have, this is the coolers that I have. I love these coolers. This is the cocking rope that I have. If you look, the hitch haul is on here, okay? The specific model that I have. And one of the things, I can't stress this enough, and I know a lot of people appreciate this, is that I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm not saying I wouldn't be sponsored by anybody, but I've never really, I've kind of been, a couple of things have asked me, different companies or whatever have asked me, and I didn't get the warm and fuzzies about it. And I don't have the biggest audience yet, but I also don't want to squander what audience I do on just any product. I will tell people what I use, just like the Excalibur. We'll start with that. I shoot an old crossbow. It's just a crossbow that I bought and that I liked. I tried it out a little bit. I actually didn't try it out ahead of time, but when I got it, I shot it, and I love the thing. And it's fit me perfect. Kind of got lucky with it because it's just a good pick. It's a good fit for me. But that doesn't mean you should shoot an Excalibur. It's just me saying that that's what I shoot. And I do love it. I mean, I really do. And the arrows that I use, the broadheads that I use, if you go back there on that webpage and we look at that, the Caldwell Deadshot Field Pod. I really like that field pod, for example. There's plenty of products I bought over the years. I've left the Excalibur Exact broadheads on here because I do like those. Those really performed well for me in a lot of circumstances. Those of you who follow Death by Bunjie are aware that I had problems with it. But these broadheads that I'm using now, the Rage Hypodermic sitting right there next to it, I like them. They're the ones that are suiting me perfect right now. But I'm not going to take the other one off of there. However, there were broadheads that I tried out that were not accurate, and they do not appear on here. I did not like those broadheads, so I haven't put that stuff on here. This is just the stuff that I have used. Rangefinder that I use, I love it. My blinds, I've done videos on a lot of these things. These quieting gear that I like is all available on here, and I'm just going to direct people here when I have questions. For purposes of processing meat and deer, I direct your attention to the flippin' zips, and I direct your attention to the Outdoor Edge. Knives, game set of knives, I've had good success with those. They don't keep you do have to keep them sharpened. I should put my sharpener on here and make that available as well. But then the cans that I use, I'll be talking about these calls next week. But the point of all this stuff, and I even have my camera gear on here for filming. So if you're interested in that stuff, you can look and see what lenses I like and what camera I use, that sort of thing. But my point with this is not to, you'll notice that all those things are on there off of Amazon.com. If you go to that web page, that's going to be up to date. It's going to tell you all the time what gear I like and what gear I use. So, and if you want to help out Death by Bunjie, if you're going to buy the product anyway, you can click on those Amazon.com links. If you purchase it through those links, I actually get a commission off of it or something like that. I haven't ever done that, but I figured I'd set it up that way as a list, and Amazon has approved me as an affiliate, so for what that's worth. Now, I'm not trying to sell you something, because those are just the products that I use. They may or may not be appropriate for you and for your use. They may not be what you are looking for. But if you're curious about those products, if you're going to buy one of them, consider buying one of them off of deathbybunjie.com. I'm just throwing that out there. I thought that was pretty cool. Peter Upton had a 6-year-old son out, had some good luck with that. That's fantastic. And then that's how you get your kids over time interested in hunting, that's for sure. Why have we never met the wife? She's doesn't have a YouTube channel, I guess, and she's not interested in the YouTube channel. I think she's in a couple videos here and there, some of the fishing videos or something like that. You might see a picture of her in there somewhere. Yeah, she's appeared in a few things, but she doesn't hunt at all, but she loves venison, and she doesn't have any problem with me going out and hunting. So there you go. All right, we are wrapping up the rest of these comments here. I'm going to scroll through them, see what we got. John Enyart got his first crossbow about a week ago and loves my videos. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that. And I've answered a lot of his questions that you've had. Yeah, if you have questions, of course, post the questions, and I try to answer them because those videos give you my take on stuff at that moment. But then I can update that with comments and stuff later on down the road. I have not tried the Slacker 150 grain 3-inch broadheads. I still have an unopened package of them. It won't be this year in the hunting season because I'm sticking with those Rage Hypodermics. Wow. I love those things. But next year, I'll try those and see. Maybe, you never know, we might switch. I don't know. The Outdoor Edge knife The gut hook and the bone saw and the razor knife. I love the gut hook. That I have the flip and zip, and that's on that Amazon.com page. If you go to deathbybungie.com, go to my gear, you'll see the flip and zip that I use. That flip and zip is just, I love that little gut hook. That thing is, it really, big improvement. It's a great tool. It's almost up there in the list of must-have tools, if you ask me. Mayberry Nut has a deer cart, never uses it. Too much trouble. Found a harness that goes over the shoulders and waist with its chest straps. Fits in his bag and easy to drag. I have that harness. Man, the rope is short on that thing, or at least the one I bought was. It's like a fluorescent orange harness with a rope on it. I've used that one time. Did use it. And I think I'll probably get that out and put a longer rope on it and try that. The other thing you can do if you got to haul a deer is if you have to go back to your car to get the cart, and if you don't want to get a cart, try a kid's sled, a big old plastic sled, put a deer on that. And if you do it right, I mean, if you keep the deer on the sled, you can probably pull that sled through the woods a lot easier. So, that's how you do that stuff. It is a herder's game cart. I will check that out at Cabela's for $100. I will look into that. Why did I name my crossbow Bunjie? That is something that is going to be the subject of a future video. And Huntfish Nuts, thank you very much for the item number and everything. I am going to copy that right now. And I'm going to paste that. Boom, for future reference. I'm going to go back and look at that when I get done. Well, thank you very much. There's a couple of you people are commenting on how you are, how you've gotten a lot out of the content, a lot out of the videos and stuff, and I really appreciate that. Ryan Cordell. This is a good question, and this will be our final question. I'm going to address this, and I'm going to sort of get ready to wrap up, because I don't want these live streams to be too long. It's going to discourage people. If they're too long, I think it'll discourage people from tuning in on a regular basis or from watching it. But this is a very good question. Have I ever noticed a venison smelling differently when I get back from the processor versus processing it yourself? I shot 4 deer in Maryland. 3 of them are wonderful. And the 4th one, it's deer number 3, which it's actually deer number 2. It's the one that I lung shot, if you watch that, or the one that I spined, so to speak. It's actually the 2nd deer that I killed in Maryland. That deer is a little bit smellier when I take it out of the packaging than the other deer. But here's what you do. I think it's sat just a little bit longer. If I take it out, I rinse that stuff like crazy before I do anything with it. Rinse it. And the meat, you squeeze it, go through there and work that to get all of the blood out of it. Then put that on your cutting board, go through and remove everything that is white. Get rid of all of that, any ligaments, tendons, any of that stuff, the silver skins, all got to go. And then when you're done with that, rinse it again if you gotta. But then when you process it, when you cook it and everything you do with it, it's pretty good. I mean, it's perfect, right? That's the key. Clean meat is what is going to taste the best. That is the key. And I think what happened, these deer, I don't know the exact amount of time, but some of them sat a little bit longer than other ones. 3 of them are just perfect. And the 4th one, that one deer, just a little bit of a different smell, odor, but no difference in taste. By the time we got done with it, I cooked back straps the other night. You'll see pictures of this coming up with baked potatoes and back straps. Oh, you're going to see that here coming up. I think I posted those pictures today on the Facebook page. It just, fantastic. So the other problem that you can run into with a processor is that you're getting somebody else's deer back, and that's going to be especially dangerous if you're getting ground venison. So you might want to, if you're not sure about your processor, you might want to consider just having them give you back the meat, and then you grind it yourself at home. That way you're more likely to get your own deer back. They're less likely to give you someone else's quartered up deer, cut up deer, than they are to give you somebody else's ground. I mean, they're just going to run through your ground and give you back 3 pounds of it, and it's going to be 1.5 pounds of yours and 1.5 pounds of the next guy's. That's one of the things. Jason Robinson, the best way to get a deer out of the woods is a Yamaha 4-wheeler, or any 4-wheeler for that matter. But yeah, Yamaha, there you go. That's the way to do it. 2009 Equinox, how often do you wax your string? Wax your string if it's not tacky. Feel your string before you go shoot. If it's tacky, you're good to go. You don't need to wax it. But I lube every time that just a light sheen of lube every time that I shoot. That's what I do. Every time that I go out for an outing, like every 4 or 5 shots, that kind of thing. But every time I go out, I just want to make sure every time when I go out there, it's got a nice little sheen to it. Executioner arrows, Grim Reaper broadheads, Lumina, great combo. There sounds like the Grim Reapers I did not try. They are on my short list of maybe I'll try them next year. But but the truth is I'm really happy with those Rage hypodermics. Holy cow! You know those things are. It's hard to after shooting those things in Maryland. How that went, it's hard to look away. It's hard to not want to shoot the Rages. Well, I'm glad that, and Ryan's asking about cooking videos. Hopefully, we will come up with some cooking videos. Maybe I'll do that. My brother hit a button buck, and the iron taste was pretty bad. Is that from the car? Is that what we're talking about? That's pretty good. Danny Starliper got a 9-point Friday evening. Nice buck. Well, congratulations. That's awesome. That's great to hear. Danny's a name that's been around here for a while, and I really do appreciate Danny and everyone else who tunes in here on a regular basis. This is fantastic. We've had a whole bunch of people communicating on here, and I really feel like I'm getting my fix of, and our peak I'm looking at our stats here on the YouTube thing, and it's actually telling me that we've got more people on this than we typically have. We've increased the number of people that have logged on to this. So it's sort of growing in that sense, and that's fantastic. Well, that's pretty cool. I want to thank all you guys because I don't get a chance, even though I do all the talking in this, but we go through and we go back and forth on the comments, and hopefully got a kick out of these pictures. It was fun for me to go back through these old pictures and share that stuff with you. And maybe in a future video, I'll show you that old Jeep. Next week, I'm going to be talking about game calls, about all the deer calls that I have. I'll show you the calls that I got, maybe blow a few of them, and then you can tell me what I'm doing wrong, how I can improve, and you can tell me what calls you use. But I really do appreciate this back and forth that we get in these live streams. I don't get this on a regular basis. A lot of you guys have friends that you sit down and hunt with. You got friends that you can call, friends you can text. You got friends that you can sort of, show them things and maybe talk to people at work or whatever the deal is. For me, I have some of that, but not enough. And what these live streams have provided so far is a chance for me to go that step further. This really feels like a virtual deer camp to me. I feel like that digital campfire, right? The electronic campfire. This is us having a conversation that we would normally have over a campfire or at our place. So I really love having you guys here, and I really do. You make me laugh too. Professor Ken. He saw 8 does tonight. No kill music, so no dead deer. I know what you mean. If you don't have that anticipation or waiting for daybreak, I guess it is, that song that I wrote, if you don't have that one that I play right before all the deer, it's just not right. It obviously was not the right shot. Is that right or what? Well, thank you, Russell Scara. You're welcome, and thank you for taking the time to be here. And Peter Upton, thank you. Well, I'm very glad you like the YouTube channel. That's great. Glock, you hunt alone. It sucks, maybe, but keep in mind, you do have us to share it with. You can share that stuff on here. The Facebook page, you can get on there and show me your deer and stuff, and I'll share that with the other people on Death by Bunjie. There's outlets out there. There are ways for us to communicate. Yeah, a virtual deer camp. That's what it is. We can have this, and these are our fellow hunting buddies, just like just like Danny is saying now. Jason, you have a great week. Alan B., you messed up big time the other day and stood up in your stand and spooked 2 does under your stand. I'm getting really discouraged. You and me are in the same boat. I stood up to move that stupid camera. I could have sat right there. A minute later, I would have shot a deer. All we can do, deer are very forgiving. All we can do is give them a little bit of free space, a little bit of time, and get back in that same tree stand. That's what you can do. Don't get discouraged. It's a long season. You got lots of times. So we got lots of time to get this done. We should invite Bunjie to a digital campfire. That would be good. Thank you very much for all you guys for logging in here. Yeah, there you go. And maybe we would be bringing Bunjie on the live stream. I will go through the comments. Keep leaving your comments on this. I'm going to wrap it up now because we've been on here for 55 minutes. Can you believe that? And I've got to get ready for bed so that I can get up bright and early tomorrow and start all over for another week. So I hope that you have a fantastic week. I really do. And thank you so much for sharing all of this with me. I have one more thing I'm going to post here. And those of you who have been here before know what I'm going to post, but here it goes. All hail Bunjie. Thank you all so much again for joining us on this live stream. Join me next week too, and hopefully this week we'll have a video answering that question that's been bugging you. That question's been bugging you. Did I get a buck? Did Bunjie get a buck in Maryland? Don't hold your breath, like I said, but it'll be a good video. I started it today, and I think you guys will like it. So until next time, all hail Bunjie.